You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from MakeUseOf.com. Welcome to the show. My name is Christian Cawley, and with me is Gavin Phillips. How are you doing, Gavin?
I'm doing really well, Christian. You know, I was just thinking, April has just whizzed by, hasn't it?
It's whizzed by, and do you know what? I've also found it to be quite a cold April.
Oh, certainly, yeah, it's not been... We've not had any heating for around 2.5 weeks at this point. Because something on our heating system is broken, and we were sort of going, it's warm enough just about, until about a week ago where we were like, oh dear, it's got quite cold again.
yeah, but it has gone quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's whizzed by. That's because of all the incredible stuff going on in tech, obviously.
Well, what else could it be? And so we are here to discuss some of the incredible things that have taken place in tech recently, but on a more accessible sort of level, the man in the street level of talking, basically. We communicate these things in a manner that hopefully our parents will understand, and certainly if my parents can understand it, anyone can understand it. So we've got tech news that matters to you. We've got tips and tricks which help you make better use out of your tech, and then we've got recommendations that are, I would say, generally speaking, tech related. Occasionally they're not. This week's is from me certainly is an example of one of those ones that is not tech related. But we'll kick off with the latest news, and it's we should have a jingle for this. It just goes Musk Watch. But we don't. Elon Musk, we'll start with, he's threatening to sue Microsoft over Twitter data. He tweeted concerning the use of data from Twitter by Microsoft. And he states, which is quite an allegation actually, really, they trained illegally using Twitter data, lawsuit time. This is after Microsoft dropped Twitter from its advertising platform as they refused to pay the new inflated API fees. There's always something to talk about with Elon Musk these days, isn't there? He's like Absolutely. The Donald Trump of Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, painfully so in many ways. It's very tit for tat, isn't it? The Microsoft responding and saying, well, we don't want to pay $42,000 per month to access your API, so we're simply not going to. And Elon Musk saying effectively, well, that's not fair. But Microsoft are very much within their rights to do what they want with their platform, which I'm sure Elon Musk has said about his own platform more than once or twice regarding other goings on Twitter. So as long as it's... everybody knows what's really going on. I'm sure it'll be okay. I can't see it working out, like him taking them to court over them saying, well, we don't want to do that anymore.
Well, no, I guess not. But then I suppose it depends how they've used data and what data they've used in some ways. But then again, it's all been open to anyone with paying that subscription. So it is difficult, I suppose. I mean, it's not like Microsoft aren't any stranger to this sort of going on, are they?
No, exactly. I mean, they basically wrote the rule book on it. But if everybody else has had access to the data for however long and is also not paying up for the new API access, is he going to start a chain of court cases where he takes every single person that now says we're not going to pay, however much it is to access your API now that you've changed the rules? So does it stop with Microsoft, or is it Microsoft and other tech companies, smaller tech companies? Where does it start? Where does it end?
Well, maybe he could be generous and pay for them, as he has been with certain former blue tick owners. You probably know, if you've been listening to the show, or if you've you just clued into what's going on with Twitter, is that the old style verification blue tick program has been retired and replaced with, I didn't realise the difference in prices for this. They call it the $8 a month. In the UK, it's £9.60. To me, it should be something like £6.60 if it's $8 a month, but whatever. 13 Australian dollars as well is the fee to have longer tweets, have a blue tick, and I don't know, get a personal massage from Elon Musk or something like that. I'm not sure. But the point is, they're not all paying. Stephen King, William the Shatner, and basketball LeBron James have retained their ticks. Elon Musk says, I'm paying for a few personally. Now, you might say, oh, that's not nice, isn't it? I personally would say, hold on a minute. Names without verified ticks include Beyonce, Ronaldo, Kim Kardashian, Sir Paul McCartney, J.K. Rowling, and Donald Trump. Why is Sir Paul McCartney's tick not there? And he's not really paying for them, is he? He's just giving them the blue tick. He's not paying, The idea that Elon Musk's got a direct debit of, $24 a month for Stephen King, William Shatner, and LeBron James is just ridiculous.
Well, it goes further than that now, doesn't it? So, on top of the random accounts that he has decided that he wants to give them back to, Stephen King specifically, because there was that tit for tat when he first announced these plans. So he's gone, well, I better give Stephen King one because we've already talked about it. But then, so after they all disappeared, not long after, a lot of accounts belonging to dead celebrities have now had their blue ticks also given back to them, which is interesting. So Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, Chadwick Boseman, and just a whole bunch of other dead celebrities have had their tick returned to them. Musk hasn't really said much about it, but it's the same sort of thing. Like, oh, hang on a minute. Now that those people literally can't do anything about people impersonating them, like taking their verified status away from them is obviously going to lead to a bunch of problems. Like, it's just layer upon layer of poor planning from Elon Musk. As the whole thing of going back and forth on what the blue tick means, how to get a blue tick, who has a blue tick, and the power now that the blue tick has as well creates this sort of weird multi-level operation which existed before, but at least before it felt like it had some level of authenticity to it. People could apply to it and you'd be rejected if you didn't meet certain criteria, whereas now it's like Elon Musk's criteria, which is not anything that anybody can actually go on. It could change at a whim, and anybody now who has a blue tick gets all of their tweets automatically bumped way up the ranking algorithm, don't they? So,
do they?
So if you have a blue tick now and you pay for your subscription, your tweets are automatically pushed towards the top of any like tweet chain or whatever. So if you were responding to something underneath it and you had a blue tick, yours would be near the top. The problem with that is, because a lot of people are now saying we won't play for Twitter Blue, a lot of people from more insidious type accounts, shall we say, are obviously seizing upon that to go, normal people don't want to pay for this, but this is great for us because we can get our awful content displayed right underneath a really prominent tweet. So, yeah. And for all of the things that Elon Musk has said about making it, making the town square, the digital town square, have better free speech, this is not how to go about it in any way. And he's actively going against what he thinks, what I think most people would consider free speech to be, by deplatforming people that you may want to hear from and letting people shout awful stuff at the top of their voice. But if that's free speech, according to him, it's not really something I think most people want to be involved in.
So it's essentially a textbook example of how not to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's and the thing is, it's exactly how everybody said it would happen. All of the people that love Musk were like, yeah, he's gonna revolutionize Twitter and he's going to make it better for everyone and he's going to make everybody's voices more able to be heard. But that's not really the case. He's making a very small subsection of Twitter be able to be heard. And for a lot of people, those were the accounts no matter your take on many things, a lot of those accounts were not wanting to be heard for a really good reason.
Well, as you've mentioned that, Elon Musk trying to do something different with something. TruthGPT is a alternative to ChatGPT that Elon Musk claims to be working on, which has generated a lot of interest. He says it will be a maximum truth-seeking AI that understands the nature of the universe. Don't think anyone understands that, but okay. And would be unlikely to destroy humanity. That's good to know. It would be unlikely to destroy humanity because it sees humans as a critical component of the universe. Oh dear.
How do you unpack
I'm wondering
that?
if has Elon Musk actually missed his calling and should actually be, sat in front of a typewriter with a literary agent.
You made the sort of comparison with Musk and Trump there, and that line of TruthGPT will be a maximum truth-seeking AI, and that's like straight out of the mouth of Trump, isn't it? It's incredible. The whole idea that Elon Musk could make something that was completely unbiased, is laughable, and B, in his idea, he becomes the sole arbiter of truth on his TruthGPT AI if he ever gets around to making it. And that was one of the things. So last week or the week before, Elon Musk released that letter, didn't he, with many people saying we shouldn't have any more AI any more powerful than GPT-4 because it's dangerous. And then a week later, we get the announcement that I'm actually working on another AI, and it's like, oh, so did you want it because it wasn't dangerous, or was it because you're already 2 steps behind in your AI development, so you'd like everyone just to slow up a little so you can catch up?
It's almost impossible to speak about Elon Musk without laughing, isn't it, basically, these days? So let's move on to something a little bit more serious. Mullvad VPN has announced that it was subject to a search warrant on the April the 18th. They announced this on the 20th of April, a few days ago. At least 6 police officers from the National Operations Department, NOA, of the Swedish police visited the Mullvad VPN office in Gothenburg with a search warrant intending to seize computers with customer data. In line with our policy, such customer data did not exist, they say. We argued they had no reason to expect to find what they were looking for, and any seizures would therefore be illegal under Swedish law. Interesting that Swedish police don't know how VPNs work in 2023, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're also not au fait with Swedish law.
I think that's par for the course with the police these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess if they're not completely up to scratch with how this particular VPN operates, Mullvad have a very, very strong reputation for protecting user data. We've included them on lists on MakeUseOf.com before as one of the best VPNs you can use. Perhaps it is just that they literally didn't understand that there would be nothing there for them to find.
I like the idea of them just turning up and it's more or less an empty room.
It's just a piece of paper that says it's not here.
Yeah. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
A little box labelled internet with a red button on the top.
Yeah, excellent.
The 14 best free PC games to play in 2023. That's free PC games, and there's 14 of them that Gavin here considers to be the best. What's going on? How many?
There's 14 of them. Would you believe that?
No! Too many!
You know what, though? I'll tell you what, Christian. If you click through to this article, there's not just 14, because I've actually included a load of genre alternatives for each of these games. So if you don't like the one I suggest,
even.
Exactly. There's actually more than 50. Whoa!
Good Lord!
But we won't go through all of those, because that would take a considerable amount of time.
That's a different show.
That is a whole different show. That's a whole show. But so the 14 best free PC games of 2023, I'll run through them in quick order. So 1, Fortnite. 2, Dwarf Fortress Classic. It's the classic version now because they just released a new version on Steam with better support and what have you, but you can still play Dwarf Fortress Classic for free, which you should go and do. Path of Exile, which is like a Diablo dungeon crawling type game. Magic the Gathering Arena, which is the digital version of the classic card game Magic the Gathering. Destiny 2, which is the online first-person shooter, outer space, flying around doing all sorts of stuff. That's great fun. The absolute classic of StarCraft 2. That doesn't really need any introduction. Dota 2, Defense of the Ancients 2. That's a MOBA, which has a fearsome reputation for its fan base, who are not particularly kind. But if you can get into it, you can get into it. PlanetSide 2, another FPS. It's got one of the biggest gamescapes you can play in. Thousands of people all battling together at the same time. It's quite incredible. Trackmania is really good fun. Crazy race tracks. You can build your own tracks, race against people all across the world. 10, we're at 10 now, by the way. Warframe. And that's another FPS, extensive open world areas, big storyline, lots of different things you can do in that. Number 11, bit of a niche one. EverQuest, the original EverQuest, which is now completely free to play. 500 zones, 110 levels to get your character through. It's all free to play now. There's been 25 content expansions. It's all free to play. It's quite phenomenal. There's lots of bits you can buy within the game, obviously. That's how it keeps going, but it is still worth a look. My personal favourite in OpenTTD, that's the open source version of Transport Tycoon Deluxe, which is a fantastic game. 13, Brawlhalla, which is like a free version of Super Smash Bros. It's not quite the same, like you won't recognise the characters and what have you, but it's the same sort of platformed 2D battling system, which is really good fun. And number 14, rounding the list up, we have Rocket League, which is just an incredible game. It's the world's best rocket-powered battle car soccer game. If you have never played it, give it a go because it's incredibly fun, it's incredibly addictive, and yeah, it's now free to play. It used to be $20 odd. It's now free to play, so it's worth a good look.
Interestingly, that's the only... I've played Transport Tycoon Deluxe, but I've never played OpenTTD, so Rocket League is the only game on that list that I have played. I've played a couple of your genre alternatives, but of the 14, that is the only game that I've played.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've played all of these, and I've played most of the genre alternative as well. And it's interesting in that I have so many paid games on my Steam thing and across Epic and GOG and all these things, but I somehow just end up coming back and playing lots of the free games.
Oh.
Which is, I don't know why I spent all the money on the other games. But some of them have gone from being paid titles to free games. So for instance, Destiny 2, when it launched in, I want to say 2016, it was a paid title. I think it was 30 or 40 quid at release, maybe $50. But it went free to play in 2019 because they couldn't sustain the player base, basically, so they went free to play to try and get more people involved. So I've not played that one for quite a while at this point, despite having hundreds of hours in it up until it sort of went free to play. So
okay, Gavin, how do you play your games? Do you use a game controller or do you use a keyboard and mouse?
Oh, well, depending on the game, but I do tend to use a keyboard quite a lot.
Do you use a standard keyboard or a mechanical keyboard?
Oh, I tend to use a mechanical keyboard.
Good lord, how do they work?
They're so much better than anything else. So the traditional keyboard, which we would normally refer to as a membrane keyboard, has like a membrane that features rubber domes. You push the key and a small rubber switch connects the circuit through the membrane and types the letter. That's basically how it works. A mechanical keyboard instead has a full mechanical switch, which inside the switch there's an actual spring that when you push it down, the spring compresses, and that's what connects the circuit to register the keystroke. So the biggest difference that you get between the two is the really is the feel of the typing and the sound of the typing. So for most people who have used a normal keyboard will be able to relate to the sort of soft, mushy feeling that a membrane, a regular keyboard has. So there's no resistance at all when you type. The keys just sort of sink into the keyboard or on your laptop, for instance, and it doesn't feel like you're really pressing much. There's no way of registering how hard you should press, or if your key has even registered its keystroke until you see it on the screen or what have you. The difference with a mechanical keyboard is that there are different levels or different types of switches. So you could get a switch known as a clicky switch. So every time you push the keys down, it makes an audible click, which is great if you live alone. It's absolutely horrendous if you take a keyboard like that into an office, or if, like me, you live in a house that has pretty thin walls. But the biggest difference really is the feeling of the typing. So when you type on a mechanical keyboard, you get the resistance between the keys, which enables you to move between the keys faster, I find.
Okay. So,
do you use a mechanical keyboard?
No, I don't know if I've ever used a mechanical. Would I have used a mechanical keyboard? I mean, I suppose my mum used to have an electric. My mum used to have an electric typewriter, so I'm assuming that would have been a mechanical keyboard.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, that's basically part of why people like the clicky sound. Actually, is because it brings back sort of a memory of that. The proper chonk 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 sound.
The thing I remember most about that was it had this sort of, not a glitter ball, but it reminded me of a glitter ball. The thing that all the characters were on was like this little ball, and it had everything on it, all uppercase, lowercase, all the numbers and all the symbols. And that was, that would then hit the ink strip, and that's how you typed with it. I can remember the noise sort of, but I'm not sure what else we would have had a mechanical keyboard over membrane. I know old computers that I've owned, the Commodore 64 and the VIC-20, they had a membrane keyboard, because I remember swapping them over. Yeah.
I think some of the early IBM, the big grey or beige keyboards, they were all mechanical. So you probably encountered them, because most people have encountered them and used them from time to time, especially if you worked in offices. I guess through 90s or what have you, when we still had, big chunky keyboards, and they would all be mechanical still. It was only until, sort of the end of the 90s, people really started switching to membrane because they were a lot quieter, which makes sense in office environments, especially where you don't want to be, disturbing everyone with your thunderous typing.
Yeah. So is there any kind of... Is there any productivity advantage to a mechanical keyboard?
I guess it comes down to how you feel about it. For me, definitely, I would certainly say there is. You can type faster. You're meant to be able to type with greater accuracy.
Right.
The physicality of the keyboard is also meant to, make it easier overall.
Does it just make you feel like you're Ernest Hemingway?
Yeah, that's basically it, yeah.
All right, it's recommendations time. As I mentioned earlier, mine isn't particularly techie, but it's just such good fun I have to recommend it. So shall I go first, or are you going first?
Yeah, you can go first. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what happened is my wife bought me a game a few months ago. There's this in the beautiful North Yorkshire town of Harrogate, which it's a town. It's bigger than the nearest city, which is Ripon. In the UK, you probably don't know this. In the UK, we have cities, some of which are about the size of a village, but they're classified as cities. Why, Gavin?
Oh, I don't know. Why? Because they've got a cathedral.
Because they've got a cathedral. So Ripon is tiny. Okay. The town I live in is bigger than Ripon, but Ripon is a city because it has a cathedral. So Harrogate is nearby Ripon. There's basically three big towns: Harrogate, Ripon, and Knaresborough. They're a little bit west of York. And there's a brilliant sort of card games shop in Harrogate. My wife bought me this game, Monty Python Flux. So it's a Flux card game, of which there are many variants. There's a Gotham City Batman Flux. There's a Firefly Flux. There's
There's a really good Cthulhu one, I think. Sounds really interesting.
I think I know what you just said, and I think I've just seen it. And there's there's also this Monty Python Flux. Now, the whole basis of Flux is that the rules change. Throw in some Knights of the Round Table, because this is very much a not Monty Python's Flying Circus Flux, but Monty Python's and Monty Python the Holy Grail Flux. This is the silliest experience you could ever have with a deck of cards. It is utterly ridiculous. It's enabled me to begin introducing Monty Python to my eldest children, who are both nearing 12. Now, I first watched Monty Python when I was 10. The BBC started repeating it in the summer of 1987. Oh, I was probably 11 actually, not 10. Either way, this is a very silly game. No, seriously though, you should check it out. It is just wonderful fun, and you get to the rules change. You get the opportunity to do silly things like songs or quotes or whatever from the Python oeuvre. So yeah, if you're a Python fan or you just want a silly game, Monty Python Flux is the game for you.
That sounds really good, actually. I've looked at the Flux games a few times, because the way that is it every single card introduces a new rule, or is it like periodic?
Every hand
rules are introduced?
has the potential of introducing a new rule or a new win condition.
Yeah.
It's utterly baffling at first.
Good fun.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Christian, this week for you, I have, leading on from what we were just talking about, a mechanical keyboard.
No!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, my God. This is quite an interesting one, though, actually. So this is a keyboard I'm currently reviewing for MakeUseOf.com, but I thought I'd give it a mention now. It's by the company Drop. I believe they changed their name recently from a larger thing, but they're now just called Drop. They do collaborations with companies and release things with their branding on. So this is the Drop Lord of the Rings Black Speech Keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it comes with all of the sort of Lord of the Rings insignias on it. So on the keyboard itself, it's got the Eye of Sauron. The escape key is also the Eye of Sauron. The space bar has like the black speech written on it, and all of the keys are in Elvish, I think, which is really cool. Much. Yeah. Interestingly enough, as we were just talking about with keys and typing and what have you, the typing experience on this keyboard is really interesting, because they've used their own switches. So I'm gonna type next to the microphone. Can I do that? Do you think I can do that?
Yeah, go on then.
So yeah. So here we go. So you can hear how loud those keys are. Yeah. So the experience of it though is really nice, and I really like how the keys feel. It's a very well-crafted keyboard. It's got an aluminium shell, I believe. Massive custom-designed keycaps. So one thing I would say about it is that the backlighting, it only comes in one color, which is white, which is fine. But because the keys on this keyboard are quite tall, they're a custom design, the light doesn't have enough area to shine out between the gaps in the keycaps.
Okay.
So at night, when you might want to turn your lights down low and just have a bit of a quiet time, you can't actually see the keys very well.
Right.
And because the keys have Elvish on them rather than, English letters, they have the English letters but very, very small in the corner. At times I have to lean right over the keyboard to go, oh, there's the letter H. Cool. But yeah, overall, it's an interesting bit of kit, and you should look out for my review when it launches next week.
No number pad on it, I notice.
No number pad. It's a compact keyboard. It's what's called a 10 keyless. So it's missing the number pad, but it still has all the function keys. You've got your print screen, scroll lock and what have you, and you've still got arrow directional keys. There's also The One Ring, which acts as the function key, which is nice. So you press it and it enables the function keys at the top to deliver different functions. So overall, it's pretty good. I'm not 100% if it's worth the $199 asking price. Not 100% on that, because that is a fair whack of cash. But the experience so far has been good.
Excellent. Well, is that live yet, or is that going live later in the week?
The review is going live later this week, I believe.
Okay. If that is published by the time I do the show notes, that will be included. The show notes, in case you're wondering, are a list of links that we prepare and include with every release of the Really Useful podcast, which you'll find below in your audio player or your podcast player or on the browser if you're currently at MakeUseOf.com. And it gives you all the context and further detail that you need for everything that we've discussed in the show. You've been listening to the Really Useful podcast, the tech podcast for technophobes from MakeUseOf.com. My name's Christian Cawley. He's Gavin Phillips. We'll be back for a new show soon. Until then, it's goodbye from us.